Behind all the market noise, the headlines, the stock tickers, there's this invisible river of data flowing every single day. It's this high stakes, behind the scenes world of financial reporting that most people never ever see. But it's what keeps our entire financial system from falling apart. And it all really kicked off with one huge question.
Right? That's the question. The one that's been keeping regulators, bankers, and entire governments up at night for well over a decade now. How do we make sure a crisis like the one we saw in 2008 never, ever happens again? Well, it turns out the answer isn't some single magic solution.
Nope. It starts with something that sounds, honestly, almost boring. It starts with a daily report. But this isn't just paperwork. It is a relentless, absolutely non-negotiable stream of data that has become our first line of defense against another financial meltdown.
And that brings us to what's known as the daily mandate. This is so much more than just filling out forms. It represents a fundamental change in how the financial world has to operate, an idea born directly from the ashes of that 2008 crisis. Think about it. Before 2008, a lot of this kind of reporting was, well, it was backward-looking. It happened maybe once a quarter or once a month. After the crisis, regulators basically said, that's not good enough anymore. They didn't want a report card. They wanted proof of stability right now. And so the biggest banks were told they had to prove their financial health every single day. The pressure is just unbelievable. So how in the world does this actually work every day? Well, let's follow the data. Let's trace its path through this incredible high-tech pipeline that takes millions of raw transactions and turns them into a crystal clear signal for the system's watchdogs. And who are these watchdogs? In the United States, the two main players you need to know are the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, we just call it the OCC, and, of course, the Federal Reserve. You can think of them as the mission control for the entire financial system. They're the ones on the receiving end of all this critical data.
Okay, so the journey starts with millions of individual transactions happening inside a bank. All of that raw information gets pulled together into a massive central data warehouse. From there, a specialized regulatory engine takes over. It cleans the data, it validates it, and it formats everything into one superstructured report. And the final step? That report gets sent securely over to the regulators. And this whole thing, this entire pipeline, runs from start to finish every single day.
So what exactly is this report? This final product of that whole data pipeline? It's got a pretty official kind of bureaucratic name, but what it really shows is a bank's financial lifeblood.
It's called the FR2052A. At its heart, it's a liquidity monitoring report. Now, in simple terms, it's built to answer one crucial question. If things get really bad, really fast, does this bank have enough cash and assets it can sell quickly to cover everything it owes? It's literally a daily snapshot of a bank's ability to survive a major storm.
And this snapshot is incredibly detailed. I mean, the report isn't just counting the cash in the vault. It tracks everything. Money coming in, money going out. It looks at what assets are already promised as collateral and what's still free and clear. It breaks down where all the funding is coming from, right down to the specific company on the other side of the trade. And this is so important. It shines a light on those hidden risks, the off-balance sheet stuff. It is a complete financial DNA profile, updated daily. So as you can probably imagine, with a report this detailed, this important, there's absolutely zero room for error. What this creates is a daily, high-stakes, high-pressure race for absolute perfection. Yeah, this phrase just perfectly captures the stakes. For the teams inside these banks who manage this data, getting it 100% right isn't just a goal or some metric on a performance review, it is the only option. Because even one tiny mistake can send massive ripples through the system. And what happens if they get it wrong? Well, an error, or even just a delay, that's not a slap on the wrist. It can immediately trigger intense audits from the OCC or the Fed, basically putting the entire bank under a microscope. Even worse, it sends up a huge red flag to the market that something might be wrong, which could create the very panic the whole system was designed to prevent in the first place. Now, this intense daily demand for perfect accuracy has fueled a massive technological revolution. The history of how we handle this kind of data tells a really interesting story all on its own, a shift from old, static files to something way more alive and dynamic. Before the crisis, reporting like this often meant somebody was wrestling with static spreadsheets, and they'd submit them maybe once a month. It was totally reactive, just to look in the rearview mirror. Today, it is a completely different universe. We're talking dynamic,
automated data feeds submitted every single day. The whole system has shifted from being reactive to proactive, designed to spot trouble coming over the horizon. This is the evolution of financial database technology, right here in action.
And look, this didn't just happen overnight. It was a very deliberate evolution. Right after 2008, new laws like Dodd-Frank mandated these changes. Then, all through the 2010s, the OCC and the Fed kept refining the rules. And today, these American standards are all aligned with global frameworks like Basel III, creating a pretty unified system of oversight around the world.
And the demands just keep getting more complex. It's not just about today's numbers anymore. Regulators now want to see the results of forward-looking stress tests. What happens in a simulated crisis? They want to know the status of a bank's emergency funding plans. And they want piles of documentation to prove there's a solid, well-governed process behind every single number. So, when you pull all of this together, you start to realize this isn't just about technology or following the rules. This is about how a database full of raw numbers gets transformed into a story, a constantly updating narrative of risk and stability for our entire economy.
Just think about that for a second. Every single day, this stream of data lights up dashboards at the Federal Reserve. It gets turned into briefings for the bank's own board of directors, and it gets fed into these gigantic computer models that are trying to analyze the health of the entire financial system. It's creating a living, breathing picture of our collective financial health in near real time. Which really brings us to the most important idea here. Liquidity, that ability for a bank to meet its promises, it's not just a number on a spreadsheet. It's a dynamic story of risk, of resilience, and ultimately of trust. And thanks to this unseen data stream, you can bet that every single day, the regulators are reading every single word of that story.